So I have various different. Is that right?
Yeah.
I have various different outlets for what I do. I'm an animator, and I have 2D animation, stop motion animation. I curate an animation online gallery. I'm starting an animation podcast, and so on. And at the moment, I'm keeping them all very separate. But do you think it's better to kind of keep that all together to show off as an animation kind of cohesive thing, or is it better to keep those things separate and each in their own place?
How are you keeping them separate?
Oh well, at the moment I use Facebook. I use Facebook pages, not profiles, so it's separate from my social Facebook.
What does it say in your CV? What does your CV look
Well,
like?
I keep separate CVs as well. Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you want it to, what do you ideally want to do?
I want to kind of keep up with all of it, but my main thing is animation in 2D digital animation.
Right.
But I also have, for example, I have my main website for my corporate commission work, but I also have a project that I've just started where I'm animating something a day for a year. So they're kind of relevant to each other, but I've kind of kept them separate, and I'm just wondering...
But do you think you might be kind of cutting your nose off to spite your face by keeping them separate?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
I keep my short film stuff and my TV stuff together, because for me, I don't know, it seems to kind of work, but it shows that I can do a lot of things with examples as well.
Because if you've got separate CVs and you're sending one out, then that person that's reading that might not know all the other stuff that you can do.
Yeah,
and it's not on there.
They might want something like that or something similar for another project.
I'd keep it all together, or I'd have a version where it's all together. Because partly, like I was saying earlier, any CV that comes into us speculatively will go on our database, and our database has a search engine. So at any point I might, somebody might ask for something that I can just put into the search engine and it will chime with something on your CV, and there's no knowing, what that might be. It could be 2D, it could be 3D, it could be corporate, it could be commercial, but if it's on there, then it can be found.
And for for you, it's probably very, very different work because you're quite a specialist in all of it, whereas for me, I don't quite know the difference between everything, so I wouldn't know exactly, the specific thing to search for on a specific CV of yours. So if it's all together, then you're going to you're casting a bigger net then.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Hello. Because you were just saying you have a search engine.
Yeah.
Are there keywords then?
No, it doesn't work on that basis. I can put anything in, and if it's on your CV, it will find it. The way I have found it works best is I'll put in the same way that when I was series producing before databases, if you were querying up and think, well, what's the most similar type of program to the one that we're making? So, that's the first thing I'd put in is other program titles that I think would sort of bring me CVs. I've got to think what words are going to be on that CV. There's no point in writing something like must be good with people or general stuff like that. I'll put in program titles, I'll put the broadcaster in, I might put the commissioning editor in, I might put a language in, I might put a location in, anything that I think might be on that CV, but it isn't a very intelligent system. They're not all like that, but quite a few companies have databases based on a similar model, so yeah.
It's how ProductionBase works. Employers can find freelancers by key search terms. You can put up to 13 key search terms, and hopefully that will pick out most CVs on that basis.
You guys? I can probably hear you.
They probably can. My problem is slightly different. I'm not a beginner. I have taken some good years out of the industry, and I'm one of the few returning women who are coming back. So I have a big hole in my work experience, but I made my very first film for in 1986, I've worked also in the States, so I have networks there also. So, and I've raised money for productions over, co-productions for the US production I worked on. Things have changed a little, but I'm still a filmmaker, and so I wonder, in terms of I'm starting to network again. I've never actually given up completely, so I still have some contacts. So is there anything that I should be doing differently? I'm trying to upgrade some of my skills. So I know what I need to do, but filmmaking is still filmmaking. So, thank you.
Sounds as though you're on the right track. You know, you're here today for a start, you're upskilling.
I would say
speaking to people.
there's no harm in having had a gap. I think it's more tragic the number of women that drop out of television. It's like something like 5,000 women to 750 men over a 3-year period. It's you know, it's not right. So I would absolutely, you know, I don't think there's any. I think it's weirder if you've got a gap not to say you took, you know, that gap, or you know, and often it's for raising a family or for whatever reason. Right, you know, getting your skills up to speed, brilliant, and then using the contacts that you've got. I think it's the most comfortable way of getting yourself back in, and you know, people will be pleased to see you, and it will lead to all sorts. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't feel that you can send your CV out speculatively either.
I'm going to just say one other thing, talking about people who contact you directly. I was actually employed by a company in the States, and I actually had Greg Dyke ringing me up every day, trying to pick my brains about how PBS worked. So it does work the other way also.
And if you've got those contacts, great. But it's about thinking about what's unique about you and what programs you've worked on that are relevant now, and what contacts you've got and skills you've got. So, you know, if he's ringing you up finding out what you've been doing on PBS, I know that was a while ago, but you're obviously doing something right, is what I'm trying to say. And actually what, you know, the stuff that you made then, actually, how relevant is it now? What contacts have you got there? How can you incorporate it into something that's topical now, really? It's difficult to say without knowing what you've done, but it's about kind of making yourself very transferable.
There's one other thing I would add also. I've seen a number of people who have, for example, not necessarily been away, but come out of the BBC after 20 years, or suddenly found themselves in a more freelance world than they've been in. And if you are an established filmmaker, then I think it's a good idea to contact commissioning editors as well. There's no, you know, they do see people. If you've got a solid CV with good track record on it, I can't speak for them, but that's what I've seen other people do. And you know, a Channel 4 commissioning editor, there's always that tendency, they'll say, well, this is a very BBC CV, but it's about making that contact, and you never know where the conversation is going to go.
You were talking about the CV needing to be in chronological order, and actually, on Twitter, as I was live tweeting, somebody got back to me quite furious, saying that he totally yeah, I know, but it's interesting to have that. And he said, totally disagree. Make sure your CV makes it easy to see why you should be hired. And he says that structure is just a variable.
It is.
So, but it's confusing to the reader if you don't know when somebody has worked on a particular program. So somebody could have worked on a program, you know, last week or 10 years ago or whatever. So you need to know where those skills are and when they were doing stuff.
Because Dragon's Den, because when I worked on Dragon's Den Series 6, it's a lot different than Dragon's Den whatever series it's on now.
True.
And the stuff that we were doing back then, I mean, it's progressed a hell of a lot since then. And even like, for example, if I just put Dragon's Den on there, if I worked on Series 2...
put the date at least, or something that identifies...
Yeah, because Series 2 was filmed on location, whereas from Series 3 or 4, I think it was, we were filming at Pinewood. So it's quite a different setup. And I think the problem is, I know exactly what I've done, and on paper, I know I've done it exactly. Other people don't.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of put your head on someone else.
Absolutely.
I think that's the main problem, that
you get over familiar with the stuff that you've done, so you just take it
So
for
you
granted.
just
and redeem it.
assume that someone knows,
Yeah.
oh, she's put this, so therefore that means that she can do this. Well, that doesn't necessarily.
I think also, it's just, all I'm saying is from experience, the majority of people put it in chronological order. So if you, it's quite easy to, at a glance, misinterpret a CV if it's not in chronological order. You can assume that something is, and you think, well, why have they gone from that to that?
And you can assume, you can undersell yourself if it's not in chronological order as well. It's not necessarily, you know, you can kind of, it just reads confusingly, doesn't it? So you can't
Well,
necessarily
you can see progress, you can see that why, you know, and how somebody has gone from one job to the next if it's in chronological order. But it's not a three-line win. It's
Was
just
this the messenger?
yeah.
But
Who is
it's
that?
interesting to see.
And I think that is an absolute case in point with CVs. It is bespoke and personal to you.
Yeah.
So you know you can sit and absorb all this information. It can it's 2 sides maximum. You know nothing smaller than font 10. But at the end of the day, it is your CV. It's got to convey you and your personality.
I
your
would have
skills.
contact details for referees, because if people need people quickly, they'll go, oh, he's worked with such and such, or oh, let me just ring them up and see if he's any good. Rightly or wrongly, but they do that,
Yeah.
you know.
Hello.
You're on.
You spoke about LinkedIn, which I do have LinkedIn profile relatively up to date. I guess I just wanted to find out, because my sort of standpoint is, my subjective opinion is that yes, everyone has them and that they're out there, but I wanted to know, do you actually kind of use it to recruit and have people actively use it for that tool? Because I think as well there's a bit of a I don't know, there's the look that perhaps people are not always completely truthful. I guess that's the same with CVs, and there's all these other things like these endorsements and those things that are on there. So I just kind of wanted to gauge from you, do you actually use that to recruit directly, and what role do you actually think LinkedIn does play?
So our central recruitment team at ITV actively use LinkedIn as for want of a better word, a headhunting tool. So you know, if you're looking for someone with a Scrum Master in the title, type in Scrum Master and see what you find. I personally had jobs sent to me, recommended. I'm like 60 grand talent manager. Oh, yes, well, I'll have 2 of those. So you know, it is a two-way street.
If you get involved in kind of television debates on LinkedIn, or just be members of those groups, you know, you can find out more about networking events, and so you can just get yourself on people's radar a little bit more.
It's also quite interesting to see who's connected with who.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mean that in a dodgy way. You know, the kind of pool of
Absolutely.
the network that people have, in a sense, you can see.
I think
I don't use it that much.
much.
I use it if I can't find a CV, you know, like you were saying. There's always ways of finding people.
I think one of the most useful things I've ever used LinkedIn for was when I was doing some interview preparation for an interview that I had coming up. I knew the panellists' names, so you know I'd searched their names, and one of them had literally their entire job title, the entire job description written out. And I was like, this is absolutely perfect for my preparation. You know, I can get an insight into the team, the department, what they do, what programs they work on. Brilliant, genius. So every interview panellist should have that sort of like information on their CV. Very useful.
Hi. So I'm French. I decided to live in London.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. I did my studies in France, and I did a couple of shows as a production assistant in France. I put on my CV like the name of the shows, not in French, I translate in English, but I don't find like a correspondent, so I don't know if like an employer will be able to consider to know what it is I'm been working on or what I studied, because there's no literally no correspondence like in the UK.
There's no equivalent to the French program that you worked on in the UK?
Yeah, or even like my studies.
What type of shows have you worked on?
It was documentaries, both of them for the French television.
And what kind of, so was it obstacle or kind of, do you see what I mean? Because there probably are similar stuff that's being done here. But you need to kind of spell that out if people aren't familiar with the work that you've done. Do you know what I mean? It's great if it's a big international brand that everybody knows, but if it's something that people aren't familiar with, spell out your skills, spell out what the programme was about, you know, contributors, all that kind of stuff. Use your language skills as well. You know, think about what your unique selling point is to that particular obstacle.
And also, like I know, like for some jobs, they require like specific studies, like I don't remember, but like really specific UK studies, which I'm not sure I have or not. But does that?
I don't necessarily agree with that.
No.
It's
No.
the wild, you know, the BBC, the wildlife stuff.
Yeah, it does happen occasionally.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
who do you think you are for researchers, we might require someone to have a history degree, but it doesn't happen that often.
No.
You know, and if you've got all the information on your CV, then, you know, we've all got these systems, they all have this search engine capacity, so, you know, if it's relevant, then it's got to be on there, and whether, you know, something will be relevant somewhere on that CV. It's just making sure it's all on there, and like Simon said, I would say, you know, very rarely do you see a CV where all that the person has, whether they've worked 20 years in the UK TV industry, they wouldn't just put the title of the programme and hope that that was enough. You'd still get a little bit of information underneath about the type of documentary, you know, whether it was presenter-led, what sort of territory, what genre it was. So it's all useful information.
And do you reckon, like, I know there's some videos of the shows on YouTube. Would that be helpful to put like some linked on my
Is it
CV?
stuff that you've shot? Do you know what I mean? Because I think it's really helpful if you say this is what I worked on, this is some of the stuff that aren't actually shot. But it can be misleading if it's not necessarily something you've done.
Yeah, I think the CV often is enough to make the decision as to
Yeah.
whether or not somebody should be, you know, in the pool for that particular job.
Thank you. Merci.
Oh, time's going up. Yeah.
Hi, I've been a freelancer for about 3 weeks, having given up a career in teaching. What advice would you give to somebody who is very, very new to the industry?
How are you finding your 3 weeks? Anything good?
Stressful kids.
Ask me that in a couple of years' time. I have a background in theatre. I was a drama teacher and have done some theatre work, but looking to get into the film industry as a writer and a director.
Okay.
What advice have you got for somebody like me just starting out?
What's your expectation at this point?
At the moment, I just want to get experience. I want to turn my theatre skills into sort of TV film skills.
How are you going about doing that?
I'm a member of Rain Dance and I'm actually doing their MA in film. So I'm doing sort of work on writing, producing, directing. I'm trying to find finance for my first short film. But I need to sort of, know how to sort of break into the industry so it's a little bit more sort of secure.
What have you done so far to try and get that hands-on industry experience?
Being only sort of 3 weeks into the industry, not that much. I've got a LinkedIn profile. I've been to the Rain Dance networking events. Obviously, I've joined Bectu, and I'm sort of concentrating on sort of writing things to send out to say that this is what I can do.
Are you looking at, you said you were a teacher before, are you looking at your kind of organisational ability as being a teacher and how transferable that would be? So it might be that you might have to go in a totally different route just to get in. So if you've got strong organisational skills and you're happy to start at the bottom, Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Use those skills in a different way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would strongly disagree. I was actually, I was commissioned while I was still a student.
Right.
I was commissioned by Channel 4. I was actually a student teacher. I decided I didn't really want to teach because I like kids but I didn't like parents. And so I've knocked on every goddamn door, got myself a nuisance, and I swear Channel 4 commissioned me because they said, give her the money and get her off our backs. But at the same time, I had started doing short courses of National Film and Television School on directing and learning to light, learning to edit and so on. So I actually had learned my technical skills also, so I knew what I was doing. So they didn't have that argument that when I went to, you know, to be commissioned, they said, well, you're an expert, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. I would say the most important thing is to contact people and let them know who you are, what you're looking to do, and be quite focused about that. So work out who the companies and the broadcasters, the production companies and the broadcasters who are making the things that you admire most, and you know, go and see them. And they may then offer you something that isn't necessarily at the level that you would want to be working at, and then that's your choice whether to do that or whether to continue to write and to. I mean, I know less about the drama side of things, but you know, that's a journey you've got to be prepared to go on, and you know, but people won't know you're out there unless you go and see them, and they will be interested. You know, but it takes time. Right? Everybody's busy. It's just you've got to have patience and be persistent.
I think it's looking at sort of entry schemes and festivals and BBC Writers' Room. That's, you know, definitely a point of contact.
But some people in productions will say, actually, she's got no experience, why should we give her that opportunity, rightly or wrongly? So sometimes by actually getting in to production, it might not be doing the job that you want to do, but you are mixing with the people that can actually influence your career.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Hi. I wanted to ask a question. Simon, you mentioned earlier, this is for everybody, but Simon mentioned earlier about if you're trying to get a job in an area outside the area you normally work. I'm a news and sports editor.
Great.
And occasionally I've tried applying for drama editor jobs, not at the senior level because I realize no one's going to give me that, but as an assistant on a drama, something like that. And what's the best way to say, I don't have experience in the thing that you do, but I have a lot of experience editing, and I can, you know, bring that to your team without flagging them.
What have you found from your experience?
That nobody wants to. Once you're in a lane, they want to keep you in that lane. Like they look at my resume and say you're a news and sports guy, so you can't cut drama. Go away.
I see that because I think it's easier for people to do that. So you have to kind of prove to them that actually, you know, that you can do different things. Whether that is actually, you know, doing your own stuff, you know, like Gemma's doing her own films and doing stuff like that, so that you can actually physically show somebody this is what you can do, or looking at kind of some of the new stuff that you've done. How transferable is it? Is it transferable? What kind of shooting have you done? What technical skills can you bring? Because it's all about you convincing that drama that you can do what they want you to do. Because at the moment they're seeing news and sport because that's your experience, and they might have other people that have done a lot of experience in drama. So why should they give you the opportunity? You know, that's for you to kind of think, well, actually, you know, and I think, how have you found it?
Well, I was just going to say I think that's kind of how I got to work on E20, the spin-off thing of EastEnders for a while, because and kind of went from entertainment to drama for a little bit, and then came back to entertainment because it was a bit too slow. But yeah, I was able to say, these are some films that I've done. Look, I know how to shoot drama. I'm not all about entertainment. I think that helped me.
Yeah.
Just
And
do
would
it.
you would you rather see that in a covering letter spelled out specifically? Like, I realize I don't have the experience in this genre, but
I would not start anything off with I do not have this experience, because automatically the reader thinks they've got the experience. Do you know, if you start off with kind of negative turn of phrase, that's all they'll kind of take from that.
Not that I can't do this, but I can do this. And packaging that together on your covering letter, on your personal profile, as you open your CV. Just really selling yourself with the stuff that you can do.
And again, be specific about where you're focusing, because I think, you know, there's absolutely going to be things that you have done that are relevant to programmes that are on there from London, you know, production companies, broadcasters. It's the easiest way to do it, is to find, you know, it could be there are people that you've worked with that, you know, you could go and find here, but also, you know, editorially, if that's the side you were on, there's going to be, you know, common points of contact that you can build on. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what Susie's just said as well about you know, targeting the right shows with the exact same sort of content that you've got that experience in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a chap in the middle. Perhaps you might want to pass that down for me. I can't get in there. Thank
you. Traditionally, and when I left school, they always said that you had to keep your CV to 2 sides, but obviously we live in a completely different world now, without giving away my age too much. But that was basically in a paper world, and Susie, you spoke about using it extensively with a search engine.
Yeah.
So therefore, is one necessarily bound to 2 sides?
No, I won't worry about that. I mean, you know, all your experience is relevant. I mean, obviously, people, once you've got to a certain point, you might not want to put all the really little itty-bitty bits that you did in your early stages of your career. But I don't think, I rarely, I mean, I do print out CVs. Obviously, if I'm going to meet somebody, I print a CV out. If I'm going into a meeting with executives, I might print out some CVs, but quite often I don't. I will use everything that's, you know, digitally on the database. So no, I really wouldn't worry about it. I mean, you know, it's just a case of, you don't want it to be dull. You don't want people to feel like, you know, there's something a little bit weird about the level of detail that this person's put on their CV. But you just never know what's going to be relevant, and I think don't worry about the 2 pages. I'd say 10 pages is too long.
Yeah.
And it says quite a lot.
If you're a PD, there's no point in you having a page on your research or AP stuff. Focus on what your most recent stuff is and the level that you are going for as well.
But I often I mean, I'm sure you do too. You'll look at both ends of the CV and a bit in between.
Do you want to pass it down? Great.
Hello. I'm writing like a 6-part drama.
Great.
And I went on a training day and they basically went, "You're new, don't bother." Do you think that is, they said basically it's too hard to go in with a drama, don't do it. This was a training day, so I wanted to know your opinion on that.
No.
And if it's realistic actually.
No, keep going, because even if it doesn't get commissioned for TV, you could there's always radio with drama, specifically some of the amazing TV dramas that we've got now started on radio. And just because you're new, that doesn't mean anything.
And don't talk yourself out of doing something if you're halfway through it, to be honest with you. Do you know what I mean? Do it, focus on it, get it done, show it to as many people as possible. You know, because I think often in this industry there'll be people that can say, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not like this, you're too young, too old, too whatever. And you have to tell them to piss off really sometimes, you know.
Because I got a lot of, you're too young, you can't do this, you're too young. And it's not true at all. You're only as good as your last thing, and age doesn't really come into it.
I think with writing, I think it's the one thing that if you want to do it, you can just do it. No one can stop you writing. You can write all the time.
They were looking at it as there's really good writers out there who have a lot of credits and they don't get the dramas.
They all started somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's their problem, that's not your problem.
That's true. Yeah, true. You know.
If their careers are not happening, you know.
That's not your fault.
No. You gotta step up.
Someone else at the back. Come to next.
Have you had some more tweets, Sanjay?
No, I haven't.
You reply back.
I'll let you do that. But I just had a question, especially in relation to marketing yourself on with application questions rather than CVs.
Okay.
Because we haven't touched upon that, but obviously the BBC functions very much on that, on the competency-based kind of recruiting system. How do you market yourself when you're asked to kind of show why you'd be the best person for the role? I mean, that's such a vague question. And is there a way of... And is there tips you could give us with regards to that? Because those questions are so vague and so wide. Where do you begin?
I think you need some concrete examples of what you've been doing rather than. I think one of the big things that we see is people talk about who they are, not what they've done.
So if we're asking you why do you think you're the best person for this role, you pick out the person spec and you tell us why you meet X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. I usually literally use the phrases as well. I'll say, I am organised and something. Here's an example. But I don't say here's an example.
So you're spelling it out.
Yeah. The more obvious you are.
I think sometimes people do these things and they presume, oh well, people will look at my experience and presume and know that I've done all this stuff.
Yeah.
Spell it out.
Yeah. The thing is, you have to remember for every job posting, there are so many people that apply that aren't necessarily relevant to the jobs out there. I mean, we don't post as much as we could jobs because you get inundated with applicants that aren't necessarily relevant, and so you have to, when you do need to post an ad, you've got to, really force people to think about how relevant their CV is.
And there's nothing worse for me reading an application form and somebody's written one line. It's lazy.
Yeah.
Come on, tell yourself.
I was just about to say, if it says answer within 200 words, here's 195.
Yeah.
Time to know your question.
I'm an editor with Service. My issue is that I've recently gone freelance. I've been with the BBC for a long time, and I spent something like my last 10 or 15 years working on essentially one show. Obviously, I can't do that now. How do I now make it clear to people that I am not just a one-trick pony?
What show you worked on?
EastEnders.
So you must have been good at it to stay on for that long. Well, that's a selling point for a start.
I mean, it depends whether you want to do something completely different or whether you want to use the skills and the experience that you've got, which is, again, what we've been saying is the
I'd like to
easiest.
do both. Essentially, I need to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very easy to talk in terms of aspiration and the sort of shows that you admire and what you want to work on and all that stuff. But actually, those of us who made a career in television need to continue in their career. And essentially, I need work. So I need to know how to market myself effectively to get editing work.
But to the independent sector, as opposed to the BBC, if you were in-house at BBC for a long time, there's a positive spin on this, which is here's somebody who hasn't been available to us for a long time, who is. So it's, another really skilled person that we can, put into the pool for jobs that relevant jobs. I mean, that's the thing. You've got to, we only have any number of jobs.
It's a big issue.
It is a big issue, but it means, again, I think of this in a more positive way. It's very hard if you just take the scattergun approach to finding work. I think it's easier to be focused. I think you have more success if you're focused. And that means, rather than just sending it out to everybody, which of course you can do, you're more likely to hear back from the people who are making programmes similar to the ones that you've been working on. So that's, you know, as much an advantage.
Absolutely. So look at the people that you've worked with over that time and where they've gone.
Yeah.
That would be my first point of call. Look at who, you know, look at your
quite a few of them are retired.
They had assistants who are now in charge.
Can I ask, sorry if this sounds a bit of a stupid question, but are you an Avid editor or a Final Cut or both?
I specialise in Avid, but I'll, you know, it wouldn't take me.
Because I think that's quite an
It
important
almost takes me time to get up to speed on Final Cut. I'm an editor. What I do is put pictures and sound together and tell stories.
That's true. But
It's secondary, and that, you know, I actually find that a very difficult thing to deal with, because I would be surprised if you went to a cameraman and said, are you a red cameraman or are you an Alexa cameraman? You might say, do you know how to use this kit? But you wouldn't say, this is what you're going to do. And I think that's I'm sure there are other editors in the room for whom that's
and I don't mean to sound like, you know, I mean, I trained and started on Avid, and I was on Avid for like a year and a half and had to flip over to FCP. But I think the thing that I find more with editing now is that because FCP is so versatile with the graphics and things, if you can kind of, I mean, I know Avid is, don't get me wrong, dug myself all there. I think with like a lot of the entertainment shows like It Takes Two and Eurovision and stuff, because you're editing on site, you need to be able to, you haven't got time to do big flashy graphics, so you have to have the editor to be able to do those graphics as well. And you can do them quite easily by switching across from Motion to FCP. A lot easier, and it's a lot less time consuming than Avid and After Effects. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think we've got time for one more question. Who's the last one?
It just struck me that you've been talking a lot about CVs and new technology, and very little about marketing yourself face to face. And I just wanted to ask the panel what tips you would have for face to face marketing opportunities, and perhaps I'll leave you to decide what those might be.
be polite and be self-aware of other people and body language. So what gets on my nerves is networking when people just come up and tell me 20 minutes about what they've been doing. Do you know what I mean? Or, you know, and I've done this and I've done this and I'm doing this and I want to do this. Whoa, calm yourself. Do you know what I mean? Or if you say, oh, I've just got 5 minutes, I need to go. Anyway, before you... Sometimes it's about kind of, you're more likely to engage somebody if you can say, actually, I really enjoyed, you know, that talk, or this is what I've been doing. Make it more natural. Talk to people as you would, you know, normally.
That, you know, talent exec stood there, so they've obviously got a job fit for you. You know, it's very much that two-way street. So maybe the whole, you know, could I pick your brains? Could we catch up for a coffee? As opposed to, can you give me a job? Yeah. Basically, or you know, what can I do? It's very much it's about a relationship. It's effectively building a relationship.
I mean, I think of some of the, you know, I might meet someone at a networking event. The next thing will be, obviously, they'll follow up, and I would welcome, you know, them to follow up with a CV. We'll then start a dialogue, and that dialogue could be on the telephone or it could be an email dialogue. That dialogue can go on for years. I mean, since I started this role at Wall to Wall and Shared, which was 2007, I've got notes attached to every, you know, some of the people I've been talking to. I will make a note of that conversation. I wouldn't have a conversation on the phone with someone without having their CV open in front of me and the notes filled. And it's not personal stuff. I have to be very careful. I'm very aware of data protection. But I can track somebody, and that's not just through what I see on their CV. It'll be the notes that I've made about the conversation we've had from 2007 onwards. So, you know, that's not everybody, obviously, but it's the people that, you know, keep that relationship going. Sometimes it's just a one-liner to say, I'm just finishing, or in a month's time I'm finishing on this contract and looking for my next thing. You know, it might be that they say I'm particularly interested in working on Who Do You Think You Are, or, you know, I'm loving Long Lost Family, or whatever it is. Then that's a moment where I will, even if we don't need to speak at that point, I'll think, okay, that's really useful information, I'm going to make a note of that, put them on the list for that upcoming job that, you know, when we're going to be needing editors or directors in 2 months' time, you know, it's really useful information, and there's no reason once you have a dialogue with someone to phone them up every now and then. It's just, it's not a fine line, there is a difference between being pushy and just keeping a relationship going, and there are people, you know, that's exactly what we do. We're here to be that kind of face, that interface between freelancers and the production company. So I think, you know, it's a relationship worth having.
We often talk about the phrase elevator pitch. So you have your elevator pitch prepared so that you know, you've got your 30 seconds with the talent exec or the DOP. You know, I use that slightly tongue-in-cheek, but actually I think it is quite important to know how you are going to introduce yourself, how you're going to convey yourself, and what would you like to get out of that meeting, or, you know, that meeting encounter. How do you want that to be?
And have a business card. It amazes me, the networking events that we have, nobody brings along their business card. CV, probably second best, and we'll bring along the CV, but don't forget these people have to take your CV away. But a card does a trick, you know, it reminds people, they go back to their desk, they'll look at your name and they'll remember you.
What a lot of people do now is they're kind of starting following you on Twitter and tweeting you and saying thanks for that. So that's another way kind of getting involved, or following you on LinkedIn as well. So
I think that's it. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.